The 911 operator heard three things before the line went dead: a woman's strangled whisper, a teenager shouting, and the sound of something heavy hitting the floor. In the quiet suburb of Maple Ridge, calls like that almost never came in. It was the kind of place where neighbors waved from driveways, lawns were perfectly trimmed, and the loudest sound on a weeknight was a distant lawnmower or a barking dog. People moved there to get away from chaos, to raise families behind white fences and double-locked doors. Michael and Laura Bennett fit that picture perfectly. He was a successful financial consultant, the kind of man who left every morning in a tailored suit and came home late with a loosened tie and a tired but practiced smile. Laura worked part-time as an interior designer, filling the house with warm colors, framed family photos, and carefully chosen pieces that made the two-story brick home look like something from a magazine. They had two children, 17-year-old Ryan and 15-year-old Emily. On social media, the Bennetts looked like the model family. Vacation photos on sunny beaches. Birthday posts with cake and candles. Captions about gratitude and family first. Friends joked that they were annoyingly perfect. Inside the house, things were very different. Ryan used to be easygoing when he was younger, but in the last 2 years something had shifted. He had grown taller, quieter, sharper around the edges. The honor roll student had turned into the kid who pushed curfew, argued about everything, and slammed doors so hard the frames rattled. It wasn't just typical teenage rebellion. There was a coldness in him now that unsettled Laura, though she tried not to show it. "You're barely here," Ryan had snapped at his father one night over dinner, pushing his plate away. "You only show up when it's time to lecture me." Michael's jaw tightened. "I work to pay for everything you take for granted. Maybe show a little respect." Emily watched in silence, eyes moving between them, her fork idle. Laura forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes and tried to smooth things over. "Let's everyone take a breath," she said softly. "We're not going to turn dinner into a fight again." But it did turn into a fight, like it had so many evenings lately, and Ryan stormed out, grabbing his hoodie and car keys, leaving the front door swinging open behind him. Ryan didn't go far. Just 3 streets over, in a cul-de-sac lined with nearly identical houses, his best friend Tyler Brooks was waiting in a beat-up sedan that looked out of place among the shiny SUVs. Tyler, lanky with restless eyes, had a grin that never quite reached his face. In the back seat sat Jason Miller, quieter, broad-shouldered, his baseball cap pulled low. "Rough night?" Tyler asked as Ryan slid into the passenger seat and slammed the door. "Same as always," Ryan muttered. "You know how it is." They did know. Ryan had told them everything, about how controlling his father was, how Laura treated him like he was 5, how they watched every move he made, checked his phone bill, tracked his car. How Emily, somehow, always seemed to be the favorite. But there was something else Ryan told them that changed everything. "My dad's worth a lot," he'd said once, weeks earlier, leaning back in this same car, his voice low. "Trusts. Investments. Insurance. I've seen the numbers. When he's gone, when they're gone, that all comes to me and Emily." He had said it casually, almost like a joke. Tyler hadn't laughed. Jason had stared straight ahead, silent. On that evening, though, the joking tone was gone. "I'm done letting them control everything," Ryan said now, staring out the windshield at the quiet street. "They don't get it. They never will." Tyler drummed his fingers on the steering wheel. "You said you'd talk to your dad about the money. About college. About options." Ryan snorted. "He told me to earn my own way and that I'd appreciate things more if I struggled first." His lips twisted. "Meanwhile he sits on more than he'll ever spend." Jason finally spoke, his voice low. "So what now?" Ryan turned toward them, eyes dark in the dim car interior. "We stick to the plan," he said. "We're not backing out now." The word plan hung heavy in the air, even though none of them said out loud what it really meant. Not in that moment. Not in plain terms. They talked instead about timing, about schedules, about when the neighbors were usually home, about the security cameras at the front door and the side gate. They discussed the way the Bennetts set their alarm at night and when they sometimes forgot. And they talked about the earlier night, the one that hadn't gone the way they expected. It was just bad timing, Tyler said, trying to sound confident. They came home earlier than usual. We didn't even get inside. No one saw us. Doesn't change anything, Ryan replied. We go again. We do it right this time. Back on Willow Lane, the Bennett house glowed softly against the dark. Inside, Laura stacked plates in the dishwasher while Emily finished homework at the kitchen island. Michael stood in his home office, staring at numbers on his computer screen, already thinking about his early meeting the next morning. None of them knew that an operator miles away would soon hear their last moments. Later that night, in the quiet hour when most of Maple Ridge slept, a call came into the emergency line. The number belonged to the Bennett's house. 911, what is your? The operator's words collided with a frantic, breathless whisper, please, someone is in. A crash. A shout, young, male, urgent. Then a heavy thud, and the line went dead. The system tried to reconnect automatically, but there was only silence. The operator checked the address on the screen, frowned, and flagged it as an active emergency. On Willow Lane, in the perfect brick house with its perfect garden, something had gone terribly, irreversibly wrong. Patrol cars were dispatched within minutes, their lights slicing through the stillness of Maple Ridge as they turned onto Willow Lane. The Bennett home sat at the end of the street, porch light glowing softly, curtains drawn. From the outside, everything looked normal, too normal, given the chilling call that had come through. Officer Daniel Harris approached the front door first. He knocked loudly. Police. Is anyone inside? Silence. He tried the handle, it gave way. The door wasn't just unlocked, it was slightly ajar, as if someone had left in a hurry, or entered. Inside, the air felt heavy. The smell of iron floated faintly at the edge of the hallway. Harris drew his flashlight and stepped forward, its beam landing on picture frames of smiling faces, Christmas mornings, vacations, school ceremonies. The perfect family staring back at him while something unspeakable waited just beyond. He reached the living room and froze. Michael Bennett lay on the floor beside the coffee table, his shirt torn, eyes half open in a lifeless stare. The lamp beside him had toppled, its shade cracked. A dark stain spread across the carpet beneath him. Clear the rest of the house. Harris shouted, already knowing what they would find. Detective Sarah Collins arrived moments later, summoned from home before she'd even finished her first cup of morning coffee. She had worked violent cases for 15 years, but the sight in the Bennett home made her breath catch. Laura Bennett was found in the kitchen, near the island where she had last stood hours earlier. One hand was outstretched toward a drawer, perhaps reaching for her phone, perhaps for something to defend herself with. Her expression was frozen in shock. There were no signs of forced entry. No broken windows. No ransacked rooms. Laura still wore her wedding ring, her bracelet. Nothing appeared stolen. It didn't look like a robbery. It looked personal. As the medical examiner and crime scene technicians began their methodical work, Detective Collins stepped into the hallway and noticed something else, a faint trail of muddy shoe prints leading toward the back door. They were small, smaller than an adult man's, larger than a child's. Teen-sized. Collins crouched, studying them. A pattern. A distinctive tread. And more importantly, more than one person had walked through this hallway. Her partner, Detective Marcus Lee, joined her. No valuables missing, he said quietly. No smashed glass. Whoever did this knew the alarm code or got lucky. Collins shook her head. Not luck. Familiarity. She eyed a family photo hanging beside her, Michael, Laura, Ryan, and Emily dressed for a fall festival, all smiles. "Where are the kids?" she asked. "Emily's at a friend's house. Stayed over last night," Lee replied. "She hasn't been told yet." "And Ryan?" "According to neighbors, he left around 8 last night with some friends." "Not home yet." Collins raised an eyebrow. A teenager not home by morning after his parents' deaths? Suspicious didn't begin to describe it. But she said nothing yet. Outside, the sun began to rise, casting a soft glow over the quiet street now filled with patrol cars and police tape. Curious neighbors gathered on lawns, whispering behind hands, their perfect suburban bubble fractured in an instant. As the detectives stepped outside, a uniformed officer approached. "Detective Collins?" "We traced the emergency call. It lasted 3 seconds. The phone used was registered to the Bennett home." The system flagged a young male voice in the background. "A young male," Collins repeated, gaze sharpening. "Not Michael?" "Doesn't sound like his age range," the officer confirmed. She exchanged a look with Lee. There were no signs of a break-in. The killers had moved confidently through the home. The victims had been overwhelmed quickly. And now, a teenage son was mysteriously absent while a young male voice echoed through the emergency recording. Pieces of a puzzle were beginning to form, dark, chilling pieces. Back at the end of the street, a car finally turned the corner. A worn sedan. Inside sat 17-year-old Ryan Bennett. His face was pale, his knee bouncing rapidly. Tyler drove, eyes flicking nervously to the rearview mirror. Jason said nothing at all. As they approached the house, his house, Ryan froze at the sight of the police tape, the flashing lights, the officers standing guard. He whispered one word under his breath. "No." But the expression on his face wasn't grief. It was fear. Not of what had happened, but of what police might uncover. And behind him, his 2 friends exchanged a look. The plan had gone through. But now came the part none of them were prepared for, the investigation. Detective Collins watched Ryan Bennett step under the police tape, shoulders stiff, eyes darting across every uniformed officer on the lawn. His friends lingered behind him, uncertain whether to approach or flee. An officer intercepted them. "You can't go in there. Identify yourselves." I live here," Ryan said. His voice cracked, but not in the way Collins expected. It wavered with tension, not heartbreak. She approached slowly. "Ryan Bennett? I'm Detective Collins. We need to speak with you." Ryan's face went slack. "My parents, are they?" Collins didn't answer right away. She watched his expression shift, first blank, then tight, then something resembling confusion. Not shock. Not devastation. A reaction carefully shaped rather than felt. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "They're gone." Ryan swallowed hard, eyes flicking to the house instead of sinking with grief. "What happened?" he asked, almost mechanically. "That's what we're trying to figure out," Collins replied. "Where were you last night?" Tyler stepped forward before Ryan could answer. "He was with us. All night." Collins turned her attention to him. "And you are?" "Tyler Brooks. This is Jason Miller." Jason nodded stiffly, avoiding her eyes. "Were the 3 of you together the entire night?" Collins asked, her tone deceptively neutral. "Yes," Tyler said too quickly. Jason hesitated. "Pretty much." "Pretty much?" Collins pressed gently. Jason's jaw moved as if he were chewing on his words. "We stopped for gas. Used the bathroom. Maybe we weren't all in the same place every single minute, but, yeah. We were together." Ryan shot him a sharp look that didn't go unnoticed. Collins made a mental note. Teenagers lying often stumbled over unnecessary detail. She shifted back to Ryan. Did your parents know you were staying out? Yeah, he lied smoothly. They were fine with it. We didn't find your car in the driveway, she added. Where is it now? Ryan froze for half a second. Tyler drove last night, he said. My car's been acting up. It sounded rehearsed, but not well rehearsed. Collins didn't challenge him yet. Instead, she nodded slowly. We'll need formal statements from all three of you soon. Tyler's throat bobbed nervously. Are we suspects? Right now, she replied, we're talking to everyone who might help us understand what happened. But the truth was creeping closer with every new detail. Teen-sized footprints. A young male voice on the emergency call. No forced entry. Ryan's strangely muted reaction. And the way all three boys stiffened every time she looked at them. Back inside, forensic techs were gathering new evidence. A tool mark near the back door frame, not enough to force entry, but enough to suggest someone had tested it. Scuff marks on the hardwood stairs. And upstairs, in Ryan's bedroom, something else, a pair of muddy shoes shoved hastily under the bed. The tread matched the prints in the hallway. Collins returned to the yard with this information swirling through her mind. Ryan was still standing with Tyler and Jason, whispering urgently. When he saw her approaching, he straightened, face empty of emotion. What happens now? He asked. We locate your sister, she said. We notify other relatives. And we begin piecing together what led to last night. Ryan nodded, but his eyes flickered, calculating, waiting, worrying. As the three teenagers walked toward their car, Collins caught the echo of their whispered exchange. This is bad, Jason muttered. Shut up, Ryan hissed. We should have never, I said shut up. Tyler closed the car door with trembling hands. It wasn't a robbery gone wrong. It wasn't a random act. It was something seeded long before that night, something festering inside the Bennett home, twisted into a plan dangerous enough to shatter every illusion of suburban peace. Collins watched the taillights disappear around the corner. She didn't have proof yet. But she already knew. The killers weren't strangers. They were right there, three boys whose shoes still carried the mud from the hallway where Michael and Laura Bennett had taken their final breaths. Detective Collins spent the next 24 hours digging into every corner of the Bennett family's life. The deeper she went, the clearer the fractures became. School records showed Ryan's grades had dropped sharply over the last year. Teachers described him as distracted, hostile at times, withdrawn at others. Friends, at least the ones who still spoke to him, mentioned frequent arguments at home. A guidance counselor had even noted concerns about his growing resentment toward parental control. Resentment. That word clung to Collins like a shadow. By afternoon, the medical examiner confirmed what she'd already suspected. Both Michael and Laura had been attacked quickly and with force, with injuries suggesting more than one assailant. The timeline placed the assault close to the moment the emergency call was made. Someone inside the house had tried to call for help, but never got the chance to finish. Crime scene techs uncovered something even more telling: shoe prints inside the hallway that matched the pair found under Ryan's bed. But the pattern was inconsistent. Some prints were slightly different, indicating at least two people had worn similar shoes. Collins tapped her pen against the report. Teenagers often bought the same brands. Friends often shared things, especially if they were planning something together. She needed more than footprints and uneasy glances. She needed a break. That break came from an unexpected place. Jason Miller's mother called the station that evening. Her voice trembled as she asked for a detective. Jason had been quiet all day, pale, unable to eat. She feared he knew something. Or had seen something. Collins and Lee arrived at the Miller home just after sunset. Jason sat at the kitchen table, hands clasped tightly, eyes fixed on a spot on the floor. "Jason," Collins began gently, "we need to ask you a few more questions." He didn't look up. "I already told you. We were together last night." "That's what you said," she replied. "But I think there's more you haven't told us." His shoulders stiffened. Lee leaned forward. "You're not in trouble for speaking the truth. But if someone else is telling you to stay quiet, you need to know that staying quiet could ruin your life." Jason swallowed hard, throat tight. "Something went wrong," he whispered. "It wasn't supposed to be like that." Collins and Lee exchanged a glance. She lowered her voice. "Jason, what wasn't supposed to happen?" He wiped his palms on his jeans, breath shaking. "Ryan said he just needed to scare them. That they pushed him too far. That they controlled everything. He said once they were out of the way, he'd have access to money. Enough money to help all of us." Collins steadied herself. "Greed. Manipulation. A promise of wealth, a dangerous temptation for boys barely old enough to understand the weight of their choices." "Did you believe him?" she asked. Jason hesitated. "At first? No. I thought he was venting. But then he kept talking about it. He said he'd thought it through, that he knew the house layout, the routines, the alarm code. He made it sound easy." "Did you plan with him?" Lee asked. Jason nodded miserably. "Tyler did too. We all talked about it. 4 weeks. And last night?" Collins pressed. He closed his eyes. "We went to the house. All 3 of us." Collins felt the words sink in like ice. "Ryan had a tool to pry open the back door," Jason continued. "He knew where everything was. He knew where his dad kept a small lockbox. He said we were supposed to make it look like a break-in." Collins leaned forward slowly. "And the emergency call? Who made it?" Jason's voice broke. "Mrs. Bennett." She grabbed the phone. "I didn't expect her to fight back. None of us did." A long silence followed. Jason's confession flowed, piece by piece, details of their first failed attempt, their rehearsals, the pressure Ryan had put on them, how fear and misplaced loyalty had twisted into something irreversible. Collins listened carefully, heartbreak mixing with grim resolve. This wasn't just a crime. It was a tragedy crafted over months by a boy blinded by entitlement and fueled by friends too frightened or too foolish to back out. When Jason finally stopped speaking, his hands were trembling. "I never wanted this," he whispered. "I thought Ryan would stop. But he didn't. And now, it's too late." Collins stood. "Jason," she said softly, "you did the right thing by telling us. But you understand what this means." He nodded, tears sliding down his cheeks. "Yeah. I know." Outside, the air was cool and sharp, the streetlights glowing like quiet sentinels. "Ryan's next," Lee said as they walked toward the car. Collins nodded. "Yes. And this time, he's not talking his way out of anything." The investigation had cracked open. Now came the reckoning. Detective Collins didn't waste a second after leaving the Miller home. With Jason's confession signed and recorded, she obtained warrants for the arrests of Ryan Bennett and Tyler Brooks. The sun was barely rising when she and a team of officers headed to the Brooks residence, where Ryan had stayed the night after driving away from the crime scene. The Brooks house was quieter than usual, its curtains still drawn. Collins approached the front door and knocked firmly. Tyler's mother answered, confusion etched across her features. "Is something wrong?" "We need to speak with Tyler and Ryan," Collins said. "It's urgent." Before the woman could respond, Ryan appeared at the top of the stairs. His hair was messy, eyes red, not from tears but from lack of sleep. When he saw Collins and the officers behind her, his expression hardened. "What now?" he asked, voice low, guarded. Collins didn't raise her tone. "Ryan Bennett, you're coming with us." Tyler stumbled into view beside him. "Detective, we didn't. We'll talk at the station," Collins cut him off. "Both of you, please step outside." Ryan didn't move. His jaw clenched, hands curling into fists at his sides. Collins watched him closely. She had seen that look before, teenagers who suddenly realized their confidence was paper-thin. Then Ryan said quietly, "Jason talked, didn't he?" Tyler froze. Collins didn't answer. Ryan let out a slow, measured breath. "Yeah. Figures. He never could handle pressure." Tyler's face drained of color, and his mother gasped at the implication laced in Ryan's tone. "Ryan," Collins said, "don't make this harder. Come with us peacefully." For a moment, she thought he might run, down the hall, out a back window, anywhere fate allowed. But he exhaled sharply, shoulders dropping in resignation. "Fine," he muttered. "Let's get this over with." At the station, the interrogations were separated. Tyler cracked first. He sat across from Collins, fingers twisting the hem of his sweatshirt, guilt carving deep lines into his young features. "It wasn't supposed to go that far," he said. Ryan kept saying his dad deserved it. That his mom didn't listen. That once he got the inheritance, he'd split some with us, just enough to help us get out of here. "Get out of Maple Ridge?" Collins asked. "Yeah," Tyler whispered. He talked like he hated this place. Hated his parents. Hated everything. And when he got angry, he could make anything sound possible. "Did he threaten you?" Tyler hesitated. "Not directly. But he said if any of us backed out, everyone would know we planned it. He said we'd go down together. Fear. Manipulation. Pressure from someone who believed he was smarter than everyone else." Tyler wiped his eyes. Jason didn't even want to go through with it after the first attempt. Ryan told him he'd ruin everything if he bailed. Collins noted every word. Their stories aligned too well to be coincidence. The planning. The failed first night. The practice sessions. The tool marks near the back door. The way Ryan moved through the home as if he owned every shadow inside it. But now came the hardest interrogation. Ryan sat in interview room 3, leaning back in his chair, staring at the blank wall as if bored. A posture he'd chosen deliberately. Collins entered quietly, taking her seat without speaking. She placed a folder on the table between them. He didn't look at it. "You talked to Jason," he said flatly. "Yes." "And Tyler?" "Yes." Ryan finally turned his gaze toward her. "They're lying." Collins opened the folder, slowly, calmly. Inside were photos, muddy footprints, the back door markings, the shoes found in his room. Evidence that drew a line straight to him. "These prints," Collins said, sliding a photo toward him, "were left by shoes found under your bed." Ryan shrugged. "Someone could have borrowed them." "And these," she continued, placing a second photo on the table, "match footprints left by at least one other person. Same brand. Same size range. Same pattern." Ryan didn't respond. She pulled out the last piece, a still image from the emergency call waveform. A blurred capture but enough to extract one clear truth: the background voice wasn't his father's. "We analyzed the audio," she said quietly. "The male voice is consistent with someone your age." Ryan's jaw tightened. Collins leaned forward slightly. "You don't have to pretend anymore. This is your chance to tell the truth." Silence. Then Ryan gave a cold, faint laugh. "The truth?" he said. The truth is my parents cared more about money than they ever cared about me. His voice sharpened, cutting, bitter. They wanted control. Every choice, every step. They didn't trust me. They didn't respect me. They treated me like a problem they could fix. Collins held his gaze. They wanted you safe. They wanted me obedient, he snapped. She let the silence sit, letting him fill it. Ryan leaned back, eyes dark with something she had seen in only a handful of cases. Not just resentment, entitlement. I had a plan, he said quietly. A future. But they were in the way. Anger flickered across his face, then faded into something colder, acceptance of what he'd done. Collins didn't ask more. She didn't need to. His words were enough to end the illusion he'd tried to preserve. The investigation was nearly complete. And in the hallway outside the interview room, officers were already preparing for the next step. Formal charges. The charges came swiftly. By noon the next day, Ryan Bennett, Tyler Brooks, and Jason Miller were officially taken into custody, each escorted in separate vehicles to avoid the possibility of coaching or confrontation. The news spread through Maple Ridge within an hour, rippling across social media and through text chains like a storm no one had seen coming. The perfect Bennett family, now revealed as anything but, became the center of a community in shock. Detective Collins watched the coverage from her office, not out of pride but out of a solemn sense of responsibility. The case had been solved, but no part of it felt like victory. 2 parents were gone. 3 young lives were shattered beyond repair. A once peaceful neighborhood was left questioning everything they thought they understood about the people living behind carefully painted doors. The next weeks were a blur of legal motions, psychological evaluations, and mounting evidence. The prosecutors worked methodically. They had Jason's detailed confession, Tyler's supporting account, the footprints, the emergency call, the timeline, and Ryan's own damning words during the interview. Still, the defense attempted to soften Ryan's role. They brought in specialists who described him as emotionally volatile, deeply conflicted, pressured by the expectations of a high-achieving household. But the facts were immovable. It was Ryan who had conceived the plan. Ryan who had scouted the routines. Ryan who had rehearsed the break-in and promised future wealth. Ryan who had led his friends inside the house. And Ryan who had stood just steps away from the emergency call that never reached help. When the trial began, the courtroom filled with quiet, stunned faces. Emily Bennett, now living with relatives, sat silently through the proceedings. Her eyes were distant, somewhere between disbelief and grief, as the prosecution walked the jury through the night her world had been torn apart. Jason took the stand first. His voice trembled, but he was truthful. He told us we'd be set for life, he said, hands clasped tightly. He said once his parents were gone, everything would be ours. I'm not trying to excuse what I did. I'm just telling you what he made us believe. Tyler followed, echoing Jason's testimony. His voice cracked as he described the moment things spiraled out of control. Mrs. Bennett reached for the phone. Ryan panicked. He told us to stop her. We just listened. The courtroom murmurs grew louder as each detail stacked upon the last. Ryan sat beside his attorney, expression icy, jaw clenched, eyes fixed forward. He showed no tears. No remorse. Only the tight-lipped frustration of someone who believed the world had wronged him first. Detective Collins was called next. Her testimony was precise, professional, unwavering. She described the evidence trail, their interviews, the contradictions, the audio analysis, the shoe prints, and the timeline that linked all 3 boys to the fatal night. When the prosecutor finally played the enhanced emergency call in court, a whisper, a shout, a crash, Emily covered her face, and several jurors winced. It lasted only seconds, but it was enough to convey the terror inside the Bennett home. The jury deliberated for hours, not days. When they returned, the verdicts were clear. Ryan Bennett, guilty on all major counts. Tyler Brooks, guilty, with consideration for cooperation. Jason Miller, guilty, with leniency for early confession and remorse. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the sentences. Years, decades, handed down to boys who only weeks earlier were worried about school, sports, and weekend plans. The weight of their choices settled over everyone like dust. In the aftermath, Maple Ridge changed. For months, neighbors spoke in hushed tones on sidewalks and in grocery store aisles, trying to understand how such darkness had grown behind the windows of a house they walked past every day. Parents looked at their own teenagers differently, not with suspicion, but with a deeper awareness of the pressures, resentments, and silent battles young people often keep buried. Emily Bennett moved away to live with an aunt, carrying memories she never asked for and questions that would take years to process. The Bennett home stayed empty for a long time, its once welcoming porch now a symbol of a story that no one wanted to revisit. Detective Collins returned to her work, one case among hundreds. But this one stayed with her, the signs missed, the tensions unseen, the invisible fractures in a family that looked picture-perfect until the moment everything fell apart. In the end, no one truly won. Justice was served, but recovery would be slow, and healing uneven. Still, the final court document closed the case with a line that Collins found herself reading more than once. Greed and resentment, left unchallenged, can destroy even the families that appear strongest. And with that, the last chapter of the Bennett tragedy was written, a lesson carried quietly through Maple Ridge, reminding everyone that perfection can be a mask, and behind it, shadows can quietly take root. In a neighborhood built on trust and good intentions, the Bennett case revealed a chilling truth: sometimes the greatest danger doesn't come from outside the home, but from those who grow up within it.